Hello, Jeff. How are you?
Hi, Tatiana. It's nice to meet you.
It's nice to meet you too. And I assume it must be nice to see the Wimpy Kid empire just grow. I mean, you've gone from 16 novels, a spin-off series, live action films, animated film now. What is it like to watch Greg grow before your eyes, but stay the same also?
Gosh, I feel like I've been growing with him. I started this series when I was about 28 years old. I've grown a lot as a person. I've become a father. I've worked on lots of live action movies. And finally, I got to this place where I was ready to write the screenplay myself. So it's been a really interesting journey for me, and I'm grateful for every step of it.
Yeah, I saw that you got to do the screenplay, which is so fabulous. So what was that collaboration like now to be like really hands-on with the direction of this film?
Yeah, it was really interesting because I got to revisit the first story that I wrote. When I wrote Diary of a Wimpy Kid to begin with, I wasn't experienced as a storyteller. I wasn't particularly good at it. I was a good gag writer. I was a decent illustrator, but I didn't know how to tell a story for the screen. So I learned a lot on the live action films, and hopefully I put it to good use on this animated film.
I think you did. I did not know this. I learned something new as well when I was preparing for the interview. I had never thought that Greg was anything like a sociopath. But then in the comments for the trailer, so many people were like, he's not enough of a sociopath. And then I looked up an AMA with you, a Reddit AMA, and you were like, I don't think he's a sociopath. So I was just wondering, this collective conversation around Greg's less than desirable social skills. How do you strike the right balance for him between, being a kid growing up and making a lot of mistakes?
Yeah, I think of Greg as just being a messy kid. In fact, I think of him as being an accurate kid. A lot of the things that Greg does and thinks, I did all those things. And the people that criticize Greg for his, behavior, I think they probably did a lot of those things too. Greg is recording his life at a time when he shouldn't be recording his life, right? When he's not a fully formed person. And I think that people that give Greg a label are sort of missing the joke. Right off the bat, Greg says, one day when I'm rich and famous, I won't have time to answer people's stupid questions. And whatever that is, I'm not sure how you label that. It's misguided. It's a little bit cocksure, but I don't think it's anything worse than that.
Yeah. And also, I think, they might miss that layer of like, he is unfiltered in the describing of his life, which most people are not. So most people might not come across as poorly as they are. Anyway, one of the biggest aspects where we see some of the problems that Greg has growing up is in his friendship with Rowley, which is, obviously at the heart of the story, but maybe Greg isn't the best friend at the start of that story. How do you see that relationship and its progression through the film?
Well, every story, every film is about growth, right? And Greg starts off the film not valuing his friendship with Rowley. And the viewer is really rooting for this friendship to work out because you can see that Greg at his best and Rowley at his best are really a good pair. So it really is interesting because we're taking a bit of a risk by writing a story about this kid whose faults are really glaring, right? And we're hoping that the audience takes this journey with us because we want for the audience to root on these two friends.
Definitely. Also, I love the animation. I feel like it was just so fitting for the story. It just feels like it's animated. So what is it like to oversee that or to collaborate on what these characters will look like, in 3D, if you will?
Yeah, that was another big leap of faith. First, we had to render them, we had to model them, right? And of course, you're used to seeing Greg and his friends in 3/4 view. I'm not a very talented artist, so
it's a stylistic choice.
Right. I'm very limited. So it's weird, seeing the characters at different angles from overhead, things like that. But we wanted to have the camera angles really follow the characters in a way that was more flexible than something like the Peanuts movie, for example. And so I think we achieved that. It was weird at first. It doesn't perfectly line up with what's on the page, but I think that you can kind of nod your head and say, yep, that's about right. That's about how they would look.
Right. It definitely, it was like a nostalgic, but with a little spice, a little twist, right? growth like Greg himself. It's good.
I agree.
What made Brady the perfect choice or the right choice for Greg, in your opinion?
Boy, the casting department really nailed that one. Brady, he's got all those qualities. He's a little cocksure. He's a bit of a salesman. He's also a really likable kid. He's vulnerable as well. And we needed all of those elements. If you take away any of those elements, this doesn't work. That's why it's so hard to cast for Greg. And then and Rowley, who's played by Ethan, is different. He's a really pure kid. He's a kid who clearly likes being a kid. He's a lot of fun. He's a very joyful kid. So the combination of these two, the salt and pepper, kind of personalities, I think works really well.
Yes, I absolutely agree with that. You also mentioned, obviously going back and revisiting story elements from the first story and the origin of the cheese touch, which of course haunts us all in our dreams. And I just want to know, what is the cheese touch in your life?
Boy, the cheese touch was a combination of the cooties, which was a thing when I was growing up, and there was an actual piece of cheese on my church parking lot underneath the basketball hoop. And I won't say what happened to it, but if you watch the movie all the way through to the end, then you can probably guess.
Well, that sounds like a horrible and fascinating story. I was talking to Brady and I asked him what he wants to do next with The Wimpy Kid. And he wants Diary of a Wimpy Kid. He wants to see Greg and Rowley in high school and Roderick teaching them as the older wisdomous senior. Does that sound like something that we can get to? What are your plans for this element of Diary of a Wimpy Kid?
Well, I think the thing that we love about cartoon characters is that they stay the same. They stay as a constant, right? We don't think about the fact that Donald Duck is like 90 years old. We like him to stay the same with all his feathers. So I think it's really important for Greg to stay in middle school forever. And Brady might outgrow him and move on. We'll see. But I think it's really fun to deliver on that promise of consistency with a cartoon character.
I love that. So no, Brady, you could not.
Right. There's a long answer to that.
Well, thank you so much. I really enjoyed the film and I'm really looking forward to what is coming next from, animated 3D stick figure land of Wimpy Kid.
Thank you, Tatiana.
Have a great day.
Take care.